Hello, this is Christian Buckley. I am a Microsoft Regional Director and a 10-time Office Apps and Services MVP. I'm also the Brand Alliance Director at AvePoint, which is the largest data management ISV in the world for Microsoft 365. I'm looking forward to joining my fellow MVP and to lead CTO Richard Harbridge on April 14th at 11 a.m. Eastern to talk about the biggest Microsoft 365 management mistakes and how to solve them. Richard and I have to try to remember the last time we presented together. It's going to be fun. We're going to go through a lot of things. We have a lot to talk about. But for the short video, I thought I'd share some thoughts on the topic, which I'm sure Richard and I will cover in greater detail during the webinar. I'm not trying to cover everything that we're going to go through on the webinar, but I wanted to give you a sampling of some of the topics and things that I'm very passionate about and things that I've seen, mistakes, 5 in particular, that I see consistently with customers and even some partners in trying to manage their Microsoft 365 environments.
To2Lead is a remote-first company based out of Canada.
What makes a world-class Microsoft 365 intranet and digital workplace?
So let's jump into it. So what are the biggest mistakes that companies make when managing Microsoft 365? Again, this is just some thoughts around things that I see repeatedly that are out there. But let's start with number 1. They won't turn anything on. So this is a classic mistake that an organization wants to dip their toe into the cloud, into Microsoft 365, but they're afraid to try out a bunch of those features. So here is an organization, typically it's companies that haven't done their homework. They don't understand. They're afraid of what they don't understand. And so people generally get Exchange in the cloud. Email is something that is pretty safe. And so they'll have that. Maybe they'll have some features they want to be able to utilize, OneDrive. So they have some SharePoint components that are live. Maybe the intranet is started to move over there. But the thing is that they're not fully embracing the model. And so they're not taking advantage of all of the features. There are so many features that if you're not fully in the cloud, if you're not using all of the various tools, then those features don't light up. So you limit your success inside Microsoft 365. And what generally happens then is organizations, they look at it, they're using it halfway, not all of the tools and not all the things together, and turning off all the features. And then they look at it a year later and they say, well, people really aren't using it that much. So they've defined it themselves, they've limited it, they've crushed people's spirits. And then they turn around and say, well, nobody's actually using it. Well, it's because they're not getting the functionality out of it. Or what usually happens is that, and this is that shadow IT thing, is that, they're using it. They're going and using it around you. They're going to third-party solutions. Like I had in a previous company, I had my own tenant that I went and paid for so I could utilize and try a bunch of the features and collaborate with people internally and externally because my company didn't support the features that I needed. So they won't turn anything on. It's a big mistake. All right, the next one, they turn everything on. Yeah, that's a mistake too. And I've seen this, especially companies that see some great new features. They see things that are promoted by Microsoft. They get excited about these advanced capabilities. And so they go and buy like E5 licenses with all the advanced features, and they turn everything on. Well, you need to be thoughtful about that. Like, what is your industry? What is your security profile? What are the risks? Where are your users geographically dispersed? What other cloud services are being used? I think Gartner put out a number that said that the typical number of SaaS solutions that companies use, it's like over 130 for a single company. It's crazy the number of services that are in use. And again, back to shadow IT, I'm sure a lot of it, you're not even aware of how many other tools and services are being used. But going and turning every feature on without understanding the risk profile of those features and how it impacts your business is a huge mistake. I mean, I I want people to go and use all of the advanced features and capabilities, but I want them to do it knowingly. I want them to have the proper governance and change management protocols in place so that they can pilot things, test it out, understand the impacts, and then go and refine the rules and the permissions around that so that you don't have the mistakes where everybody is an admin, you're an admin, and you're an admin. And then you have sprawl, you have compliance issues, and then you have intellectual property leakage. And that happens in that scenario. All right, next. They repeat past mistakes. So what do I mean by this? Is that they moved off of their old platform, away from the old way of building things, and they then try to force fit the new technology into what they know was broken. So and you get this with migration. If you're on an old version of SharePoint for your intranet and you move over into the cloud with SharePoint Online and utilizing Teams and all of the other rich capabilities that come with the cloud, but then you insist on making it look and function exactly the way that your old system, it's a huge mistake. Understand, again, this is why piloting makes a lot of sense, but you should also embrace and understand the new features. There may be new ways of doing things, better ways of doing things that allow you to take advantage of the Power Platform to automate. A lot of the artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, these intelligent solutions that are out there that need to leverage the cloud. And if you're half in, half out of the cloud, you're still hanging on, and there's nothing wrong with hybrid environments, but just understand the impacts of hybrid, the data silos that you're creating, and again, the old practices around maintaining the old system, trying to force fit that into, I was going to make the statement, in migration, we call it the lift and shift, where you've taken, it's like moving in your home, and instead of taking the time to go through and throw things out and sort in the boxes, you just go into a room and start shoving things into boxes and say, you know what, we're going to resolve this when we get to the new house, open the boxes there, sort everything when we get there. Bad idea. So pilot, trial things, understand the capabilities, and roll it out organically as you learn, as you understand the capabilities, and don't repeat those same mistakes. All right, now the next one, they say no to most employee requests. This goes back to change management. I know Richard and I are going to talk a lot about change management. You can't do this. This is where shadow IT comes from. People are like water running downhill. You put a stone in front of people, they need to get their work done. They go around the stone. And so you can't just say no to requests. IT organizations should look at requests that come in. A great example is there's a lot of organizations that are starting to understand having a formal provisioning process for the creation of teams within Microsoft Teams, within team sites, within their intranet, within SharePoint, and with the setup of external access, where there needs to be collaboration happening with other organizations and different levels of collaboration externally, and the handling of intellectual property when there are internal only external collaborators that are going on. You can't just say no to the request like, oh, that breaks our security protocol, therefore, sorry. You say no, people have to get their work done. They will go find a way. What typically happens with shadow IT is that they will then go use a personal credit card and go sign up for a cloud service. Again, those 130 plus cloud SaaS solutions that all organizations have. How much of that overlaps? How much of that is shadow IT? How much of that means that your intellectual property is sitting on systems that you don't have access to? You aren't even aware that are there. And is it leaking? Has it been hacked? Can you audit that? Again, what does your risk profile look like? If you're saying no, that just means that you're not understanding what the end user, the employee, is trying to do. It could be an educational issue, that they're not aware that what they're trying to do can be done within the features. Or it also could mean that they have needs in their business that the out-of-the-box solution in Microsoft 365 doesn't provide what they need, have that conversation. Is there a supported way of providing them with what they need? Or do you need to go and purchase a third-party solution, but do it in a managed way that you're aware of it, you can audit it, you have governance policies and procedures around the management of that approved outside of the normal, solution. And then finally, they focus on the wrong metrics. There's a lot to be said around this. And I know that, I'm so happy that Microsoft is focusing so much on adoption and engagement and the health and well-being of employees as part of the employee experience. You have to be careful when you see metrics for success for Microsoft 365. You see it elsewhere. In a report, you saw it. Microsoft is talking about it. Another leading customer, major customer, is utilizing this. How does that actually fit your organization? Is Microsoft's measurement of engagement, an engaged employee, does that fit your collaboration culture? Does that make sense? What does it mean? Like so many times where I could look at two different Microsoft teams, two different maybe business groups inside the organization. One of them has high frequency of conversation, of chats, of sharing of information within that. And the other team just seems to be very low. They're sharing some documents, the occasional conversation, not a lot of meetings. And you look at those two and say, well, this one is clearly highly engaged and adopted and using it more, and this one is not. Or the nature of the collaboration is just very different. So you can see how looking at giving the same measurements, the same metrics of success to those two teams, it doesn't really fit. You just have to be careful with how you're defining success within your organization. It's one thing to go in and look at as a piece of information to help inform your management decision is the flow of conversation, the number of meetings, the number of times, the number of users that are logging in on a daily, a weekly, a monthly, a quarterly basis, and going and looking at to help drive your decision-making. That is not the metric. I often say that statistics and these metrics, it's a slice in time is irrelevant. It's whether it's moving up or down that's important. It's the conversion metrics that you really need to look at and understand. What are we really trying to do in the company? And so I try to overly simplify it and describe this. Say, like, if your company produces product X, and each month you generate 100 of these product X by implementing the new technology, by bringing people together. If you then see that, hey, on average now we're deploying 125 or we're delivering 125, well, that's that movement over time. It's irrelevant how many documents were shared, how many chats happened, how many meetings that happened. At the end of the day, the real true measurement is, did we deploy or did we deliver more product? So your organization needs to figure out what are those metrics that we're really trying to measure, and then what are the different signals? What is the data that helps us better see what is happening and whether we're delivering or not delivering? So it's not the measurement that's the single slice of metrics, but what your overall goals, what you're trying to achieve for the business, that's what you need to measure. And so that's the mistake that's made. And that's a big one. That's a deep one. I don't know how much time Richard and I will have to go into all of that, but that'll give you at least a sampling. Hopefully you can join us on this April 14th at 11 a.m. Eastern webinar, when Richard Harbridge and I go through this 2 to Lead webinar and talk about the top management mistakes that are made with Microsoft 365. Hope to see you there.